Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Other Space FM. I'm here with Jason the Ape. My name's Sean Nana, and we are going to break down some of the latest updates that we got from Otherside, which in this week's update, they gave us some new strategic elements for Legends of the Mara. So
Woo.
that's exciting. How you feeling about it, Jason?
Bro, you know what? I can't wait to jump into this because they gave us finally a little bit of something to sink our teeth into, man.
Well, I think it's always dope, when we get these updates, sometimes even when we read it, and I'll be honest, I didn't read much at first. I'm looking at the images that they're giving us. I'm like, oh my God, what's this? And I'm like, oh shit, I should probably go back and read this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is going to be highly strategic, and I think that's one of the reasons why Other Space FM weekly show, as well as our Discord, has been so valuable as we get in there and think about these topics collectively, right? So let's jump into the screen. And the other day, the other side posted this. You guys jumped into the Discord and broke this down hour after hour. I think you were in there for like 4 or 5 hours talking
Yeah.
about this, right? And one of the things that I took away from that is how insanely valuable the group think is. Thinking about these things with your buddies and your peers gives you a lot of opportunity to understand what gaming dynamics are coming at us.
Yeah, everyone has like different backgrounds and experiences when it comes to, you know, card games, which this could be very well like a 2D based card game kind of experience, as well as like MMORPGs and the mechanics behind like World of Warcraft and things like that. So having different perspectives and people saying like, well, in this game it was kind of like this, I can only imagine that Yuga is pulling kind of the best from all the different experiences and figuring out what are the best mechanics that work well into this and how can we flip it so that it's something really fresh and new and really fun. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. This image though, damn.
Bro, it gives you a reminiscence of like Predator, a little bit of I want to say like Godzilla, a little bit,
Yeah.
with that text and the coda language. It's a made up language, so it looks a little bit like hieroglyphics, a little bit like certain different languages. It's very interesting how they blend this surreal with the real, and it leaves us guessing as to what it says.
Yeah. Yeah, and we know this is part of the Shattered Vessels, and in this update, we learn a little bit more about the Shattered. In fact, that's the image that we're seeing right now. That's like our first glimpse at what the
Right.
Shattered could actually look like.
I mean, we're gonna have to go through this post a little bit and cover it, but then we're gonna jump into the blog where they give us a little bit, not a little bit, quite a bit more detailed information. So let's not really read this. I'm just gonna kind of scroll through it and give you guys the awareness that it's there, because this is what we see when we get excited about Twitter. You see these images, and these are the things that Sean and all the rest of the community are breaking down in the Discord. But the part that gets me the most excited is the blog, right? So it says every Yuga official post, this is their final tweet on the thread. You go into there, and that's when you get the real detailed information and really, what we should be looking forward to, I think. Right. Because this is not to be like, we're not trying to make this sound like it's such an overwhelming experience. You can't do it by yourself. But it is a game, and it is a little bit more fun to do with others, right? So to be able to strategize, conceptualize, think together, that adds a little bit more fun to the experience, I'd say.
Well, dude, to be honest with you, I've heard people who aren't as involved as and passionate as we are, right? And even people who are really familiar with some of the other different projects in the Yugaverse and the Web3 ecosystem are still trying to wrap their heads around like what the fuck is happening with Legends of the Mara. So I know it is complex at first, and the more you kind of familiarize yourself with it, I think the funner it gets, because the understanding of it really kicks in as that foundational level, and then your imagination starts to run wild on like what the different possibilities are and how you might be able to play once you kind of self-assess, like, where am I in all of this? Where do I start? What assets could I, based on the things that I either own or not own, what's my next move so that I can get myself involved? Because there's several layers of this. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
other deed owners, people with a PFP that are just excited about the other side. But in this case, this is really talking about Legends of the Mara, which starts off with the vessels descending, and anyone who had an Otherside other deed was able to burn their other deed, where it gave them 2 NFTs from that. It gave them an other deed expanded, which was just the deed itself. If there was a coda on it, it decoupled it, but it also gave them a vessel, and it was one of 3 vessels. And the vessels are in the Otherside Vessels collection on OpenSea or any other marketplace that you're looking at. So
Right. So that would be this right here that I'm bringing up. And this is the most, common place where people will go and look, but not the only place that they're listed. But
yeah,
damn, look at this, 0.6% listed, bro.
yeah. I mean, considering there's 100,000 other deeds,
Yeah.
and you needed to burn them in order to obtain one of these vessels. And so I don't think everyone, in fact, I know not everyone has burned their vessels. Only 41,000 out of the 100,000 other deeds have been decoupled.
41K decoupled, only 0.6 listed. That's interesting, right? And so there's
0.29 floor price, and today is May 19th.
So there's 3 kinds of different vessels. If we look in the header up top, you can see there's the blue, the green, and the orange. Super quick top level, Sean, you want to break down what those 3 differences are?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to claim your vessel, and the people who are able to claim, those are the ones that have an other deed. There's 1 vessel that lands on each other deed. And so you're able to claim it and get one of 3 vessels: a farmer, a hunter, or an enchanter. And maybe if you do the search right there, where it's search by name or trait.
There you go.
So out of those 3, farmer, hunter, and enchanter, each one of those has a different floor price. So you can see people are valuing those enchanters at 0.63 compared to 0.29 for a hunter. And that also kind of showcases the percentages of, out of the existing vessels, how many hunters there are versus farmers versus enchanters. So there's definitely not as many enchanters.
Yeah, and it looks like there's some codependent ones as well, which, people strap some the codependent, the Gucci codependent onto some vessels, and we're not sure what that will do to increase the value of those, but very curious to see.
Yeah, I mean, so the vessels itself, there's just one element that we're going to need to do with these vessels, and that is nesting them. The first piece of information we got was 1 vessel per other deed expanded. And yeah, as we take our vessel, and if you have an other deed expanded, you're able to nest it, and that will eventually hatch into a Mara.
Right.
And that's where I think even the codependence and all these other things, it's really like, what could you do with that Mara afterwards? And so we got information on the environment tiers and how that's going to come into play, right? So they're showing the worker capacity for each one of those environment tiers on an other deed.
So that was something we always wondered about, was the environment tier. How would that relay in terms of value? And the first value prop that we see is it allows an amount of worker capacity, right? So all of a sudden, tier 5 lands become more desirable because you can put 5 workers on your land at once. However, you can only nest one at a time. So there's still that mechanic, right?
Yeah. And there's some intricacies within even that, like the worker capacity, such as enchanters. We still don't know what they do. We know they're going to have some sort of magical, like really cool abilities, but those don't count toward your environment worker slots. They don't count against your worker capacity.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's super important. And then we kind of get this one. This was the second to last post we got about the sediment fragments and just the importance of the sediments and what nesting on those particular sediments may do for our nested vessels, right? And that's to think that biogenic swamp might be a little bit more valuable to nest on than maybe the infinite expanse.
Well, to clarify, it doesn't necessarily say anything of how it's related to nesting. I think the sediment fragments really come in when the Mara is hatched. Then you start to put it on you start to put it to work, and it's either going to farm sediment fragments or, like it's going to your Mara can ingest sediment fragments, and based off of what sediment tier you have for your other deed, that will indicate how productive it can generate these sediment fragments.
Got it.
So the nesting part, to me, it's like, nest as soon as you can if you have a vessel and another deed. And once you do that, then there becomes this kind of whole nother gamification of how are you going to evolve your Mara? And based on the sediment fragments that your Mara ingests, that's going to determine certain traits and abilities for your Mara. And so, you might nest something on like an other deed that's, on an infinite expanse sediment, but once it hatches, that Mara theoretically should be able to be put to work on another other deed, and that will very well that could very well indicate how that Mara could evolve based on the sediment fragments that it ingests. So it's going to come to a point where we're going to need to transition from the vessel to the Mara, and then there's going to be a point where we transition the Mara to a Coda Mara, and that transition, I think we get a little bit more information in this latest update.
Yeah, and that might be, like you said, where sediment fragments come in, where you start to feed it and grow it. So then the next and most recent update that we get is more than gameplay, the collector metagame. So we'll kind of briefly go over this, but this is a lot more information than we've gotten in a long time. Just kind of briefly read it. The strategy behind the Legends of the Mara starts with the decisions we make as collectors. The game embraces a variety of different play styles, each with their own strategic advantages. The decisions you make as a Voyager will not only guide your journey, but will influence the experience of other players in the ecosystem. So that's the first time I've ever heard a game say that your decisions not only affect how your character and gameplay will go, but of every other person in the game. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. There's going to be an effect based off of what other people are doing in this economy, because even sediment fragments, there is a capped global supply, which we learned about.
So there are three types of vessels: hunters, farmers, enchanters. We just went over that a minute ago. Each can hatch into a corresponding type of Mara if properly nested. However, since only the one vessel can be nested on other deed expanded at a time, choosing which vessel to nest first will be one of the first decisions players will face. So like Sean said, there doesn't seem to be a reason why you wouldn't nest right away.
Yeah, I mean, it does say it's one of the first decisions that we have to face. And, there's still a possibility that it does matter when and where you nest your vessel. But it just seems like there's so many other advantages of having that Mara hatched and being able to do something with it, put it into play essentially.
Right.
But once your vessel is hatched into a Mara, you can already start to use that Mara in the game and get another vessel nesting onto that deed, since
Interesting.
because there might be people who have multiple vessels and one deed,
Right.
so
Right. Which, like,
that
for myself, I have more vessels than I have deeds. So I
yeah.
definitely need to get them nested right away.
Yeah, and you won't be able to, right? So you'll be able to nest however many deeds you have. Those Mars will hatch, and then you can decide, okay, these next set of vessels, where am I going to nest it? And while you're already working on that deed, it could be nesting a new vessel.
Right, right. All right, so let's jump to Mara and Coda Mara, the next part of the blog here. A nested vessel eventually evolves into a Mara, which can be assigned to an other deed while you nest your next vessel. It's like Sean and I have talked about this before, maybe. You'll have an opportunity to combine your Mara with your seasonal catalyst and sediment fragments to evolve it into a Coda Mara. So that's the interesting part, Sean, that you're referencing, of like, maybe you don't want to rush into it because you're waiting for a certain season catalyst. Maybe you're waiting for a certain fragment sediment that you need to evolve it properly. That's very interesting.
I mean, they put in the last paragraph there, importantly, Kodamara are also a key part of the collector metagame. What they look like, the trait rarity, and the game function are all influenced by the Voyager's choices and how the community as a whole leverages the ingredients used to create them, which are the sediment fragments. So
Interesting.
those Kodamara is eventually what we need to evolve our Maras into. And what a great diagram to kind of show this. What I thought was interesting, though, is that the sediment fragments, that like third icon, or that icon to the right, that colorful icon to the right,
Yeah,
it
right.
says optional
Right.
right
But
above it. It's probably hard to see. I can't really see it, but it does say optional there. So
it's interesting that you say that, because to me, it makes me think, like, is it optional in the sense that you can choose one of 5, not optional in that you don't need a sediment fragment? It's optional in which you can attach.
I think it's optional to even have the sediment fragments with the Mara, but you're going to want to have it ingest if you want to get the good trait rarity, or certain functions like abilities, because it's very possible that each of those sediment fragments could contribute to certain things that your Kodamar will have the ability to do. Like, sometimes there could be like an attack, a trait or ability. There could be a health or regenerating health ability. There could be a magic ability. And perhaps these sediment fragments could contribute toward all of those things. So it's very possible, like, if someone's just like, hey, I have some biogenic swamp, I want my Kodamar to be all biogenic swamp and ingest it with that. Well, you might be lacking some other abilities that
Right.
these other sediment fragments could potentially
What
yield.
if the optional is that we can put up to all 5 of them into one?
I think that's that's what's going to happen.
And that's like the main one, is like, if you have all 5 into one, then boom, you have the most powerful Kodamara, because he has a little ability and skill set of every type.
Yeah, because we know that biogenic swamp sediment fragments are going to be really difficult to come by. But also, if I just have a biogenic swamp sediment fragment, this also adds value to anyone who's farming on an infinite expanse sediment as well, because I might want my Kodamar to have whatever abilities or traits that those sediment fragments could yield too.
Right.
So it kind of helps even out the playing field as well. And I think it's really interesting. They're not letting us know what is the best recipe. So it's going to be a whole game of just us
Discovery.
observing, experimenting, discovering, and finding out, like, what are other people doing,
Absolutely. All right, so now that we've kind of touched on the Mara and the evolution to the Coda Mara, it's hard to not talk about the biggest and the baddest, which is the Coda, right? And that's something we've wondered is what competitive advantage does a Coda have over the Mara and the Coda Mara? So here we get a little taste of information. Coda holders wield a distinctive advantage. Codas skip the nesting process and are game ready for Legends of the Mara. They are always more powerful than Coda Mara. So right off the bat, they're more powerful. They are the most powerful. You right away when the game starts, you can get it into the game and get it to action, right?
Mhm.
So that's a huge competitive advantage. Why? We don't know yet, but we get in the game early. So that, you get a head start in that sense, at least.
They're always going to be more powerful than a Coda Mara. So even as people continue to evolve their Mara into a Coda Mara, these Codas are going to definitely have some really, really great abilities, right? And they also have the choice on what they are able to do, like a farmer, enchanter, or a hunter. And they can
Right.
pick those roles, but just one at a time.
So then next it goes into the topic of the shattered, which is also a very interesting thing I think you've thought about quite a bit. Voyagers can deploy their Coda Mara and Coda Mara to defend Otherside from the shattered, mysterious titans that awakened shortly after the vessels descended. Their presence possessed a threat to the Mara, Coda, and Otherside itself. The full extent of their power is still unknown. What does that mean?
So, I mean, it seems like this is our enemy,
Right,
right? Like we may be incentivized to work together because we have this common enemy, which are the shattered.
right.
And so, we'll see. And we still don't know about how a vessel can be corrupted. I know we didn't mention that yet in this episode, but vessels can somehow become corrupt.
Right.
And so during that nesting period, we'll see how that plays out because we don't know if it becomes corrupt. Could that become a shattered? Could a
Right.
shattered be something we eventually have the ability to do? And so it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something to figure out. Is it a tool? Is it something that happens during nesting because of something we do incorrectly or something that we do on purpose? Right. That's a
Mm.
question I've had for a while. Sediment farming versus battling the shattered. Voyagers will have a choice between hunting shattered for treasure and farming sediment fragments, or a mixture of the two.
Mm.
Why farm sediment? The recipe for producing the rarest of Kodamara has been lost to time. It's up to Voyagers to experiment to determine which combinations of seasonal catalysts, sediment fragments, and Mara will yield the best results. This is what you said earlier that's super important. There will be a capped global supply of sediment fragments that Voyagers can gather. All right, so we're going to revisit that. But once Voyagers combine sediment fragments with their Mara, sediment fragments are returned to the global supply, effectively replenishing the amount available to farmers. In this way, the amount of sediment fragments for a Voyager can collect in a given period on a specific other deed will vary based on the global activity, which effectively increases the strategic skill Voyagers need to employ to evolve their Maras for peak performance. The supply of seasonal catalysts will be limited in quantity, and each will have a different effect on each type of Mara. You'll want to proceed with caution before evolving a Mara. The effects are irreversible. That's a super important bit of information about the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so they're given some reasons on why you would want to farm sediment, right?
Right.
And we know that not everyone will have the ability to farm sediment. You need a farmer vessel that nests and hatches into a farmer Mara, right? And so at some point you want to be able to collect these sediment fragments because at some point we're going to need to have our Mara ingest that to turn into a Kodamara. And as people go and farm and collect these sediment fragments, that cap global supply, it's just it's just going to just continue to dwindle down, right? And so until someone actually ingests the sediment fragments and transform their Mara into a Kodomar, then those sediment fragments get released back into the global supply. And so there is a timing thing. I could see
Right.
some people just farm, 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 farm. Like, I like putting it into extremes so that we can get a concept of, you know, the strategy a little bit better. So let's just say I only decide to farm. In that case, there might be an advantage because I have all sorts of sediment fragments and I can diversify into like sediment fragments from biogenic swamp, any sort of deeds that I might have access to, right? And just be able to collect as much as I could so that when I'm ready to evolve a coda, I can actually have the right recipe and mix it. And then there's also the fact that maybe some people are just hunting
Right.
and they don't have as much sediment fragment. How could they get some of those sediment fragments? Well, they might need to go to the people who farmed them, and that indicates a marketplace, or
Right.
some sort of way that I might be able to say like, hey, either I go and farm it myself, or I go to Jason and say, dude, you got so much biogenic swamp, sediment fragment. I'd actually just need a little bit so that I can add this to my recipe when I transform my Mara. And there might be some incentive for you to do that via ApeCoin.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can totally see that happening. This is going to be exciting to see what happens, because every decision you make is irreversible. I love that dramatic weight to it, right? Because it's not something that you're just going to go willy nilly about when it may be you only have one deed and one Voyager to play with, right? A lot of your actions have to be thoughtful with purpose and intent. At least that's how they make it seem right now. So that's super exciting. Why battle the Shattered? When a Shattered is defeated, it leaves behind a treasure. The more efficiently a Shattered is defeated, the more rare and exclusive the treasure. So this is the first time we're seeing alpha testing gameplay footage of a Shattered loot drop, subject to change, it says. But this is an interesting visual. What do you take away from this?
Bro, is there any way you can zoom into this?
Let me
Because,
try. Let me try.
man, you know, the first thing that I'm noticing is it's showing like some alpha gameplay footage, right? So we're getting a glimpse of what it's going to be like to interact with Legends of the Mara. So that's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
You got the shattered loot right there in the middle. And so that is essentially what we can expect after you defeat a shattered. It's going to leave a loot box. And so we're about to, you might be able to collect that loot box and hopefully be able to open it. And there might be some really cool treasures, etc. Potentially even sediment fragments that maybe the
Ooh.
shattered had ingested. So
Oh.
that could be another way a hunter could ingest sediment
Oh.
fragments. We don't know, but that's kind of where we have to see. We have to
Yeah, but
see, like,
that's a good, like, that's a very interesting speculative thought. Fantastic.
yeah. The other thing that we're noticing is there's 5 different slots right there on the bottom. And that tells me that this environment that we're in, which we're seeing the background of right now, is a tier 5 environment.
Oh.
And so we're seeing someone essentially assign 5 different workers into that tier 5 environment, and they're battling, or they have just battled a shattered. And that
Interesting.
bar on the left-hand side, on the bottom left-hand side, that's
Where it says combo.
says combo, that's probably how efficient, that probably leads to how efficient you may be able to defeat that shattered right there. So based off of the combo of different players, you might want to really see how can you get that combo meter up, because that's going to be the most efficient way to defeat that shattered.
Let's go.
And that would result in the more efficient you defeat them, the better rewards. You know,
Yo,
the more rare and exclusive the rewards will be.
right. So the more you bring the whoop ass, basically, the more you're rewarded.
Yeah. And
I
then you
love
see
it.
on the very top left too, you got ApeCoin up there. So that's really exciting. So we know this is all
Up here.
powered by ApeCoin. So there's going to be functions and utility for that. On the top right-hand corner, I've seen speculation.
Looks like
Uh,
leaderboard.
that could very well be the leaderboard right there. The box on the left, that might be your loot box or your treasures.
Yeah, yeah, because it looks like there's a 0 in the middle right there. So that could definitely be some kind of value that changes, a loot box, perhaps. I could see that.
Yeah, and we know that's a coda on the very bottom left, and then I'm not really sure what that thing is on the bottom right.
This right here, yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, that was a great take though, and I really am stoked to see what that turns into. So I think this is going to be what it continues. What Yuga continues to do to us is give us little teasers like this until they just open up the doors and let us play. Other deed traits. An other deed expanded will serve as the key for unlocking gameplay for Legends of the Mara, and its traits will affect strategy. For example, environment tiers dictate possible shattered reward, such as tier 1 other deeds will compete only against other tier 1 other deeds for a specified pool of shattered treasures. In future seasons, artifacts and resources will come into play, and more about each other deed trait meaning will be unveiled over time. You'll want to fine-tune your strategies in a meta that's constantly evolving based on decisions of other Voyagers, and equip your other deed wisely to compete against them. So the fact that they say you're only competing against the deeds that are in the same tier as you makes that feel so much more of a fair game right off the bat. Like, I'm not going to, if I have a tier 1, I'm not battling a tier 5 person. I'm battling the other tier 1 people.
Yeah, those leaderboards are going to be a really key component in this game, obviously, to me, right? The fact that the leaderboards are going to be segmented by environment tiers, that's really, really interesting, because it gives multiple opportunities to climb the leaderboard, right?
Yeah.
If you have a tier 3, you might want to just be on top of that tier 3 leaderboard. But the other thing is the tiers also determine the types of rewards that you get as well. So I think the tier 5, considering there's 5 worker slots in those tier 5s, right? And so you got to have way more game components, aka Maras and Kodas, in order to really be efficient in competing on the tier 5, because you have way more pieces of the game. Versus a tier 1, you just need to put one Mara or one Coda at play plus an Enchanter, in order to efficiently battle some of those shattered, because there's only one worker slot, right? And so yeah, I think it's interesting how the environment tiers are going to determine the different leaderboards that are going to be in the game.
So let's quickly just touch on the leaderboard, because that's the last part of this blog, I think, and then it goes a little bit just onto the horizon, which is they keep teasing us. They end with here's a chunk of great information. Here's just something really awesome. We'll just keep on moving. All right, let's touch on to the leaderboard. Legends of the Mara will have a global leaderboard listing, environment tiers separately. That leaderboard will track the damage dealt by each Voyager team and the time it took to take down a Shattered. The race to defeat the Shattered as fast as possible will be tracked, with a collection of treasures or other items going to each season's top contender per environment tier. These items, similar to the treasures the Shatters leave behind upon defeat, are limited and seasonal.
Well, so remember, like in Dookie Dash, the top 10% got a certain reward, certain rankings. Like, they could very well tie in rewards, like skill-based rewards.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it becomes like a whole nother component besides just owning certain NFTs, and whoever owns this gets the most rewards. It comes down to like people using it, people contributing to the game and this entire narrative. And those leaderboards, it's going to be tough to maintain your spot up there.
Oh, bro, you better believe you and I are going to be trying super hard to keep our leaderboard position.
Bro, you
at the
know,
tippy top.
OTHERspace is going to do that shit. You know,
Yeah.
That's one of the things, like during this whole downtime, as we're all learning about all of this stuff, this is all part of getting the community together and figuring out how could we actually maintain an edge as a community too.
Oh, yeah,
because
absolutely.
we're going to need each other in so many different respects, especially breaking shit down, you know, because that helps us develop our own individual strategy. But at the same time, we know like the benefits of guilds, you know, guilding up, things like that in previous games and things. So how could we actually find ways to work together? Because they're very well, because of the ODAC, there very well maybe certain times where it's important to work on your other deed right now versus maybe that's in season versus maybe when it's not in season. We might need to rotate where our energy and focus is as a community. So it'd be really interesting to see how that all comes into play.
That's very interesting, man. And I think this was a very important thing for us to do, is sit here and break down the vessels so that other people can digest it a little bit easier. Because like you said at the beginning of this stream, if you're just kind of looking at it, it's confusing, right? What do I need a blue rock for versus a green rock versus there's a little bit more to it than that, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
So we're here to support the community and make sure people find some value, but also a comfortable way to engage and play the game. So we're going to keep creating these videos, touching all aspects of the other side, everything that we can, feasibly imagine. And if you guys have any thoughts for what you want us to touch on, just let us know. Find us on Twitter.
Put it in the comments. You know, we want to see if these videos are valuable, and we'd love to hear, like, was there something new that you took away or something you're still curious about and wondering yourself? And that gives us some fuel so that we can continue to create some more content. And at the very least, dude, I love doing this with you, Jason. Just because it's been so fulfilling, and it helps me. It helps my brain's been melting for the last like 2.5 years.
Oh yeah,
you know
absolutely.
I mean?
Absolutely, bro. No, we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna keep making content regardless. But if you got any value out of this, like, subscribe, tell your homies. OTHERspaceFM is here to provide you guys with as much content as we possibly can create that is valuable. We're not just gonna push it out there for no reason.
I was going to say, you know, our Twitter handles are in the description below. So, you know, hit us up on Twitter if you want to invite to our currently private Discord for Otherspace. We're happy to invite you in there.
Yeah, bro. We just went over 350 community members, a lot of quality NFT and Web3 members, a lot of OGs in there. So make sure to hit us up.
People who
appreciate
are
all of you guys. Bro,
about the other side.
It takes ambition and dedication and a bit of just gotta be a little crazy.
Yeah. All right, dude. And thanks,
Until
everyone.
next time, guys. Peace.